Welcome to the ride with Wild Wayne Cartwright, an exciting thrill ride through the wonderful world of HBCU athletics. Before our trip begins, let's set a few ground rules. First, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Second, hit the like button. Third, please be sure to tell someone else about this show. Now that we've got these things out of the way, it's time for our journey to begin. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your ride.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the ride. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have to do a bit of a pivot on this episode. So, coming on a little bit late because I got word that Coach Thomas needed to reschedule because there is a water issue. So he's in the process of moving his family to a hotel. So we're going to reschedule and do the Chronicles with Coach Thomas probably next week. I just actually got off the phone with their SID just a few minutes ago. So what I do have for you tonight, of course, Wild Wayne, he stays prepared. So what I am going to do for you tonight, I'm going to go over all of the football schedules up to date. And I've got everything that I've already prepared for everybody. I've got it by week view, and I've also got it by every team up to date. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of pivot and go there because, we stay prepared. So everybody make sure you hit the like button. Make sure that if you've never subscribed to me, make sure you subscribe. And then what I want you to do as we go through this thing tonight, if you got any comments or anything that you want to say on the schedules of everybody, feel free to do that. You guys love the trash talk. You can do all that too. But once again, for everybody that's just tuning in, Coach Thomas, he had to reschedule because there was an issue. They had a pipe burst, water main, and everything like that. So I'm going to go over schedules. All right. So as you can see, I've been in the lab. I've been working, been doing my thing. I've prepared all this stuff for everybody. So I stay at the ready, right? So we're going to start with week 0. And, what I'm going to do, as we like to do, we got to have a little bit of traveling music as we go about this thing, right? So let's go to the track, shall we? We going to do this thing and we going to travel it in style. All right. So everybody, obviously, you've seen a lot of football schedules that have been put out, but you haven't seen it like this yet. All right. So we start week 0, and week 0, this is pretty awesome because week 0, as you guys know, has normally been a very, very light process. It's usually full of maybe just like a couple of games. And this year, week 0, now that FCS can play 12 games, now you see a fully loaded slate coming up. All right. Now, some of these networks I've plugged in. Obviously, a lot of these networks are subject to change, but we start week 0 on Thursday. Mississippi Valley State, they're going to play at Nichols. Then you have Clark Atlanta at Grambling. FAMU is going to host Albany State. A game that I really, really am looking forward to seeing is North Carolina Central going down to play Texas Southern. And then you have Southern linking up in a non-league game, a game that doesn't count in the standings, in Birmingham. Coach Marshall Faulk's debut taking on Alabama State there in Legion Field. That should be a pretty awesome one. I like how Prairie View is going to take their talents on the road and test themselves up against Texas, the Texas Power, Tarleton State. And then you've got a really, really good one. I'm really excited about this one too. Jackson State going on the road and taking on Tennessee State. I hope these two play every single year. And then my alma mater, we're getting together in Atlanta, playing against the Howard Bison. Coach Ted White, his debut as Howard Bison head coach. MEAC SWAC kickoff on ABC. All right. Then you go over here to the MEAC, the Big South, and the CAA schedule. You've got the second campaign of Coach Jackson, Deshaun Jackson, getting it started against the Stony Brook Sea Wolves on Thursday night. And then you've got North Carolina A&T hosting Morgan State. South Carolina State, defending Celebration Bowl champions, HBCU national champions. They get their schedule open up against Savannah State. And then someone I had on the show a couple weeks ago, Coach Van Malone of Hampton, getting it going against the Virginia Lynchburg Dragons. And then you've got Winston-Salem State kicking things off there in Norfolk against Norfolk State. All right, so that is week 0. And once again, if you're just tuning in, I'm rescheduling with Coach Thomas because he had a situation happen at his home. So you're getting the schedule tonight as we go through it. All right, now let's go to week 1. Week 1, you got Bethune-Cookman going to take on UCF Knights on a Thursday night. All right, then you've got Alcorn State hitting the road going to play the Southern Miss Eagles. Golden Eagles. Then you have UAPB getting paid nicely at Mizzou. You got Miles College at Alabama A&M, Lane College Dragons at Alabama State, Edward Waters taking on Jackson State, and then you have a game that could be subject to change, but it's still on right now. Mississippi Valley State going to hit the road to play Sacramento State. As you know, Sacramento State has advanced its way up to the FBS level. Kentucky State at Southern, Central State at Grambling. So you got a lot of D2 at our SWAC teams. And then on Sunday, Labor Day weekend Sunday, really, really awesome slate on Sunday. You've got the renewal of the Labor Day Classic between Texas Southern taking its talent on the road to play Prairie View, a classic game last year that went down to the final play. And then you've got the Orange Blossom Classic there in Miami with South Carolina State taking on FAMU. And you switch over here to the MEAC, the Big South, and the CAA. You got Norfolk State going to play at Old Dominion. Morgan State is going out to play Arizona State. Richmond Spiders at Howard Bison. Then you've got Delaware State going to play William and Mary. And then the home opener for North Carolina Central as they welcome in Elizabeth City State. And then payment game there, you see Tennessee State. They're going to play the UGA Georgia Bulldogs. Good luck with that one. And then you got North Carolina A&T going to play the Georgia State Panthers. And this rounds itself out with Hampton. Payment game, they're going to go play Maryland. All right, so that is week number 1. So we had week 0. This is week number 1. You see a lot of SIAC hooking up with the SWAC. And then you see over here, you got a couple payment games. You got Norfolk State getting paid, Morgan State getting paid. Then you got Tennessee State getting a nice check and Hampton getting a nice check. All right, so that's week number 1. All right, now we go week number 2. You got a Thursday nighter starting week number 2 as FAMU goes to play at the U. So they're playing 2 games. Their 2 games, their second and their third game are going to both be in the same stadium, Hard Rock Stadium, Miami, 4 days apart. Then you got Alabama State staying in state to go play Troy Trojans. Prairie View, they're going to stay in state. They're going to head to Waco McLean Stadium to play the Baylor Bears. You've got, should be a pretty late matchup. You got Texas Southern going to play UTEP. Southern, one of its multiple visits to the city of Houston this year. First one visit, they're going to play the Houston Cougars. Then an in-state FCS matchup. You got the Stetson Hatters going to play Bethune-Cookman. That's an interesting matchup. Another game, guarantee game. You got Grambling going to play the TCU Horned Frogs. And then we get this matchup early, the Southern Heritage Classic. It was a pretty good game last year. UAPB took out Alcorn. They're going to play again there in Memphis They're in Liberty Bowl Stadium playing early in week number 2. Then a game that's still to be announced, Chicago Football Classic. Mississippi Valley State is going to play. Their opponent has not been named as of yet. So it's there, but it's a placeholder. And then this was a good game last year in Nashville. Alabama A&M got the win over Tennessee State. This year, they're going to get themselves together. They're going to play each other in Huntsville this time. I'm going to be at that game. It's going to be pretty cool. That's your SWAC for week number 2. Then you switch over here to the MEAC and, Big South OVC and CAA slate of things. You've got Norfolk State going to play Virginia. Then you have Howard going to play the defending national champion, Indiana. Woo-wee! Then you have Virginia State going to take on South Carolina State. Then you've got Bowie State new head coach, Dawson Odoms. He's going to be going to take the team in there to play Delaware State. They played last year in Dover. They're going to play again this year in Dover. Then Virginia Lynchburg, they're going to get things rolling into Morgan State to play the Morgan State Bears. Then the aforementioned Legacy Series game. And then we get this one early. We get the Aggie Eagle Classic going down in Durham this year. North Carolina A&T going to play North Carolina Central pretty early. All right. Great rivalry. And then you have a conference game for Hampton in the CAA as they welcome the Bryant Bulldogs. All right. So you said you're hearing Chicago State, but the Classic is becoming, well, if it is Chicago State released their full schedule already, and they didn't have a placeholder to play Mississippi Valley State on it in that spot. So we'll see. But that is week number 2. All right. Now we go week number 3. All right. This is the Stadium Grand Opening. All right. Stadium Grand Opening for North Alabama Lions. They are hosting Alcorn in their stadium opener. All right. Bank Independence Stadium in Florence, Alabama. That should be a really grand affair there. Hopefully Alcorn has a chance to go in there and be the biggest spoiler of an opener ever. Then Bowie State, they stay on the road. They come to play Alabama A&M. Then really interesting non-conference matchup. You got the Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks staying in state to take on Prairie View, going to play Prairie View. I like that matchup. You've got a matchup with Southern playing Louisiana Christian. Yeah, people weren't happy with it, but guess what? You get on the board nevertheless, right? You've got Tuskegee for the second year in a row going down there to play Jackson State. And then there's the aforementioned again, Virginia Lynchburg. They're going to play Bethune-Cookman. And then you have the Delta State Statesmen staying in state there, coming not too far up the road to play what is the home opener for Mississippi Valley State. And then a really, really intriguing matchup down there in Tallahassee. You got Tennessee State locking horns again with the FAMU Rattlers. Now, you see I have Texas Southern's logo there. There's a chance that they may have a game in this week. Their schedule has not been fully announced, but I have their logo there because this is one of the few places that they can have a game remaining, right? That's the SWAC side of things in week number 3. Now you go over to the other side of MEAC and Big South and CAA. You've got Hampton, and you got the Battle of the Bay coming early in week 3 this year. Battle of the Bay, Hampton going to play Norfolk State. It was a great game that they had last year there in Hampton, and this year they come right across the bay and play Norfolk State. Howard, second week in a row with a money game in the Big Ten. The previous week they played Indiana. This next week they play Rutgers. You've got South Carolina State going to play Furman. That's a pretty cool one for them. Nice in-state game for both teams. Then you have a money game there with Delaware State going to play the South Florida Bulls. Then the city rivalry. You got Morgan State going across town to take on Towson. And then another in-state non-conference affair is North Carolina Central. They go to play the Gardner-Webb Running Bulldogs. Then I had the aforementioned Tennessee State against FAMU, and then a conference game for North Carolina A&T as they face off with the Campbell Fighting Camels. All right, that is week number 3. Now we go to week number 4. You've got SWAC play getting started in earnest. All right. Now, I have the UAPB Golden Lion logo right there because this is a placeholder for a game that has not been announced yet for them. All right. But these other games that are up on this screen are. All right. So you have Mississippi Valley State getting things started in the SWAC as they take on Alabama State there in Montgomery. Then you've got Alabama A&M going down to Florida. It seems like they have them playing SWAC openers in Florida every year. This time, last year they played Bethune-Cookman. This year they're going to play FAMU. Then you have Texas Southern going on the reservation to play Alcorn, right? And then you have South Carolina State locking horns in a non-conference matchup with Bethune-Cookman. That game was 55-41 last year in Orangeburg, so they get together again. Then you look up, you got the State Fair Classic. Prairie View is going to lock horns there again with Grambling. And, you know, if you haven't seen today, it was formally announced that Mickey Joseph has agreed to a contract extension. So he will be back on the sidelines for the Grambling State Tigers. And then last but not least, big game that week going down in Jackson. You've got the Southern Jaguars with Marshall Falk taking their talents to the vet to take on the Jackson State Tigers. That is week number 4 in the SWAC. Now you go over here, MEAC, Big South CAA. You've got a game that was swapped out, right? All right, so Norfolk State originally was supposed to be playing North Carolina A&T for the greatest homecoming on earth. Well, Chicago State came in and swapped dates. So now Norfolk State is going to be playing Chicago State in Chicago. Then you've got North Carolina Central going to play East Carolina Pirates, right? The aforementioned game with South Carolina State and Bethune-Cookman. Then you got the Towson Tigers, non-conference FCS, going to play against Delaware State. And then you have Howard Bison there. It's a placeholder for a game that's to be announced. And then CAA games, you have Campbell going to visit Hampton. And then you have the Rhode Island Rams going to visit North Carolina A&T. Tennessee State has its bye week that week. All right. Now we go week number 5. Week number 5 in the SWAC. You've got Prairie View going to play Mississippi Valley State. Then you got a non-conference matchup with Texas Southern going to play at the Florida Atlantic Owls. Then you've got Alabama State going to visit Daytona to play the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats. Then you've got UAPB going to play at Southern. You got Alcorn going down to the hole to play Grambling. And then, thank you, Lord, for the final time of this contract, you're going to see Alabama A&M playing Jackson State in the Gulf Coast Challenge in Mobile. I'm tired of it. A lot of other folks are tired of seeing it in Mobile. I want to return back to home and home, man. So one more time, it's going to take place in Mobile, October 3rd, Alabama A&M, Jackson State. All right, switching over to the next side of things. You've got Norfolk State going to play Robert Morris there in Pennsylvania, all right? He said, that's a late non-conference game for Texas Southern. It sure is. Then you've got the Truth and Service Classic, also known as the Battle of the Real HU, going down in Washington, D.C. with Howard and Hampton. Then you got the Citadel going to play in-state, non-conference, at South Carolina State. Then you've got a game that was really good last year. They're locking horns this time in Albany, where you got Delaware State now visiting Albany. You got Morgan State playing a non-conference matchup, FCS style against now Patriot League, Villanova. And then you've got Campbell going to play at North Carolina Central. And then you've got a Big South OVC game, which is the Big South OVC opener for both teams. You got Tennessee State going to play at Western Illinois. And then you got CAA with North Carolina A&T. against Bryant. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining me once again, what was originally scheduled to be the show with Coach Thomas, he had an emergency that he had to deal with. So I'm going to get him on next week. So in its place, we've got scheduled that we're going over everything. So, hey, stay with me, hang out, hit the like button. And, you see everybody's schedules here at the same time, right? All right. She said, I hate to say it, but I hope Chicago State under Bobby Rome isn't another Lincoln, California or Virginia Lynchburg. They don't even have a home stadium. Well, they're actually playing at SeatGeek Stadium there in Bridgeview, Illinois, man. So it used to be the home of Chicago Fire Soccer. So, hey, I think it's cool. It's almost like the similar stadium that Texas Southern has. Look at it like that. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. Now we're on to week 6, October 10th. So we go Bethune-Cookman. They're visiting Alabama A&M. And then, I know, Alcorn fans, I know you might not like this one, but guess what, man? It's your homecoming. You're going to play Arkansas Baptist. Hey, Arkansas Baptist will put up maybe a little bit more of a fight than Lincoln, California did last year. We'll see, but that's your homecoming, okay? Then you got Mississippi Valley State. They're going to play Texas Southern. Then, this game is always nuts and it can go either way when these two get together. Southern is going to play at Prairie View this year. And then we get this installment, which is a homecoming there at Alabama State, all right? Alabama State knocked FAMU off for the very first time as SWAC opponents last year in grand style down there in Tallahassee. So Quinn Gray brings his Rattlers into Montgomery to face the Hornets. And then lastly, on this week, you've got Jackson State going to play at Grambling, right? UAPB is right there because, again, it's a placeholder for a game that has not been announced yet. All right, now we go over here to the MEAC and the CAA and Big South OVC. There's that team again, Virginia Lynchburg. Gonna play at Norfolk State. You got North Carolina Central going to play William and Mary. Then this is a game that took place last year in the same place. It's being played in the same place again this year. South Carolina State's going to play Charleston Southern in Charleston. Robert Morris, they're going to go play at Morgan State. That is Morgan State's homecoming. And then this is a placeholder for Delaware State. The opponent might be Central Connecticut State. They were supposed to have played Central Connecticut State last year, but it got moved. This might be the place where they play them this year, okay? Because they have one more non-conference game to announce. All right. And then in the CAA, that is North Carolina A&T going to play at New Hampshire. And then UT Martin playing at Tennessee State and Big South OVC play. All right. Week number 7, everybody. We got Bethune-Cookman at Valley. Shout out to Valley. And then you got Alabama State playing at UAPB, and this is UAPB's homecoming game. So UAPB is hosting Alabama State this year for its homecoming. Long way from, that one Christian school that they played last year. Westgate Christian. All right. Then you got Alcorn going down there to play at Prairie View this year. All right. You get that in week 7. Then you got Southern making another trip there to Houston. So they go to the Houston area 3 times this year. So Houston, then they go at Prairie View, and then this is the third of those games where they go at Texas Southern. That's an interesting road there, okay? 3 Texas trips for Southern on their schedule. This is Alabama A&M's homecoming. Alabama A&M's homecoming this year. They're going to host Grambling. Looking forward to getting down there to seeing that one. And then, it's always usually good when FAMU and Jackson State get the lock horns. This time they play in the vet. All right. Switching over. This is the transition week between when the MEAC goes to conference play. So it's a little bit light on this side. The only one game that they have represented this week is you've got Morgan State at Tennessee State, which is Tennessee State's homecoming. You switch over to CAA side, the G-Ho game, the greatest homecoming on earth game this year, will be Chicago State at North Carolina A&T. And that's right. That is JSU's homecoming on the opposite page. Right here, FAMU at Jackson State. That is Jackson State's homecoming. Thank you for pointing that out. Now we go over here, back here. That is the greatest homecoming on earth game with Chicago State at North Carolina A&T. And then you got Sacred Heart playing at Hampton in another CAA game. All right, now we're on to week 8. And week 8, again, there's a placeholder for Texas Southern. We don't know what that might be. Again, I'll show you after this. You know, when I get to the end of the string here, when I go to the individual schedules, they have not announced everything yet, but these are the confirmed games of week 8 in the SWAC. It's pretty light, regardless, even if Texas Southern has a game or not. It's pretty light. As you know, this is the week before the Magic City Classic, so Alabama State and Alabama A&M, they always have their bye week that week. So what you have Jackson State going to play at Bethune-Cookman. Then you've got UAPB going to play at FAMU. And then non-conference, East Texas A&M is going to play at Prairie View. All right. Now we continue on. This is the opening of MEAC play, October 24th. And you get it started with some really good matchups here. The first one is, you can remember the homecoming game that North Carolina Central had last year when they welcomed in Delaware State, and Delaware State came in there and got the victory. Well, they get to do it again. They're in Dover this time. Then you got Norfolk State going down there to play South Carolina State. And then you have Howard going to take on Morgan State. All right, so that's MEAC conference play week 1 there, October 24th. And then you switch over here to CAA. North Carolina A&T has a bye week. Monmouth at Hampton. And then you have Charleston Southern at Tennessee State in Big South OVC. Now we go to week 9, Halloween Day. And this is a really nice slate in the SWAC on Halloween Day. You've got Bethune-Cookman at UAPB. You have Grambling going down there to take on Texas Southern. Then you have the Magnolia Bowl being renewed, as you have Alcorn this time playing at Valley. Then you have Southern looking to snap that losing streak to FAMU. It's at 6 games and counting. Southern now this year, they're going to go play at FAMU in Tallahassee. And then you have the Magic City Classic going down in Birmingham with Alabama State and Alabama A&M on Halloween Day. Week 2 in MEAC play, you got Howard going to play at North Carolina Central. Then you've got South Carolina State going to play at Morgan State. And then you have Delaware State at Norfolk State. Then you go CAA, you got North Carolina A&T at Elon, Hampton at Towson, and then Big South OVC play to round out this week with Tennessee State going to play Lindenwood. All right, now we get into November, ladies and gentlemen. And we've got all 12 teams in the SWAC playing in week number 10 in November. All right, you got Bethune-Cookman locking horns with Southern again. Last time they played there, the game went 5 overtimes. Then you have UAPB at Grambling. You have Valley at Jackson State. Alabama State at Texas Southern. Then you also have Alabama A&M at Prairie View. So the Alabama schools last year hosted the Texas schools. So this year you got the Alabama schools visiting the Texas schools. And then you have FAMU making a visit to the reservation to play Alcorn State. Week number 3 in the MEAC, you got Morgan State at Delaware State. You got South Carolina State at Howard. And this game right now, looking at it, you think it'll probably be a better matchup than what it was last year. You'll see North Carolina Central going down there to play Norfolk State. Then you look over here, CAA, you got North Carolina A&T at Monmouth. Hampton at Elon, and then Big South OVC, you got SEMO going to play at Texas, at Tennessee State. Tennessee State, yeah. All right, we going over to week number 11, and then you said, PV fans, who's replacing Cam Peters in your opinion? I see a lot of freshman commits and dude who transferred from Georgetown. That'd be interesting, man. Interesting to see what happens there. All right, week 11. You got Grambling at Bethune-Cookman, Texas Southern at Alabama A&M, and you got Valley at FAMU. Remember last time Valley went down there, they got the victory. Prairie View at UAPB, and then what's known as the Swack in the Food Classic. Shout out to G, shout out to J Max and Al. You got Alcorn at Southern at Southern this year. Then interesting game, man, which is always big in the standings. Last 2 years, it's been a great game. This year, they link up in November. Jackson State comes to Montgomery to take on Alabama State. Then you go week number 4, MEAC. You have Delaware State at Howard, Norfolk State at Morgan State, and then these last 2 years, been great games, man, in the MEAC. This year, you get North Carolina Central at South Carolina State. Then CAA, you got North Carolina A&T and Hampton getting together. They play each other. And then you've got Eastern Illinois at I always get this wrong. Eastern Illinois at Tennessee State. There you go. All right, week 12. Round and getting close to the end of the regular season, everybody. You got Alabama A&M going to play Valley. You got Texas Southern. There, I did it again. Texas Southern going to play at UAPB. You got Prairie View at Alabama State. That could be interesting there in the season, in the SWAC season finale for both. Then you got the Florida Classic, and then you got the Soul Bowl. So the Soul Bowl going down in Lorman this year on the reservation. All right. Then you go over here, the finale of MEAC play for that year, for next year. You got Howard playing at Norfolk State. You've got Morgan State at North Carolina Central, and then you got Delaware State at South Carolina State. Last year, that game decided the championship of the MEAC, so we'll see what it brings this year. CAA, you got Albany at North Carolina A&T, and Hampton closing its CAA schedule out at the Stony Brook Seawolves. And then likewise, you got Big South OVC finale closing the regular season out for Tennessee State going to play Gardner Webb. And then we got week number 14. You know what it is, Thanksgiving weekend. You got the Turkey Day Classic with Tuskegee at Alabama State. And then, you got the Bayou Classic. All right. So that's what you got. All right. Everybody hit the like button. Like the like button. All that good stuff. All right. Now, let's get ready and we'll go to the individual views of the schedules. All right. We'll do that. Just gotta, you see, I'm just clicking, getting all the way back. And we'll go and we'll start with Alabama A&M. Okay. Here is the individual view for every schedule. Okay. So I gave everybody the week by week compiled. So now you've got the individual views. Okay. So, and I'll kill the track for everybody. All right. So now we'll go individual view. And yeah, no Las Vegas game this year. Yep. No Vegas game. That game, the game between Grambling and Jackson State's going to take place down there in the hole. All right. So this is what Alabama A&M has. They start off with Howard in Atlanta with the MEAC SWAC kickoff. They got Miles College coming in, and then Tennessee State and Bowie State. So they play a neutral, and then they have 3 home games. And then, on paper, a pretty tough start to the SWAC. Real tough start to the SWAC. These guys, they finished 4-8 last year. So you see they start off SWAC play down there in Florida against Florida A&M. And then the aforementioned game against Jackson State and Mobile. And you see Bethune-Cookman, Grambling for homecoming. Then you see they always get their normal bye week before the Classic, Magic City Classic, Halloween against Alabama State. Then they go to Texas to take on Prairie View, Texas Southern, and then they finish things up with Valley. All right. So, what's the grade? What's my grade on the schedule? TBD, if I can give it one, TBD. I honestly, for me, when I look at this schedule, I'm not a fan of two D2 games. I would actually like it if we exchanged one of the D2 games for either a team like North Alabama or Samford or maybe even, a MEAC game. But regardless, it's what we got. And we'll see what it is, right? So we'll go on. So that's what Alabama A&M has. Now we go to Florida A&M, and I put this in order of by the way that these were all announced and way that they were put together. So, this is in no particular order. Now we go to FAMU. This is Coach Quinn Gray's opening schedule of his campaign. So he's going to play the team that he just coached. Yeah, I see that. Howard's the MEAC game, but I would have liked to have played another one. That's what I'm saying. But, it's all good. So they're going to play Albany State, man. Cool. Then this should be interesting, man. Orange Blossom Classic. That's actually 9-6. I got to adjust that. 9-6 Sunday. They're going to play South Carolina State there in Miami. Then you see they're going to stay in Miami and play the U. So get used to playing there in Miami in some of that heat. And then you've got Tennessee State. Then you got Alabama A&M and at Alabama State. And then at Jackson State. That's an interesting start, man. Then you have Pine Bluff, and then you have Southern at Alcorn. Yeah, haven't seen that one. Haven't seen that matchup in the SWAC yet. FAMU at Alcorn, but you're going to get it this year. And then, they got Pine Bluff for homecoming. They got two good home games there in a row there. You get homecoming, and then you get Southern back to back, man. That should be pretty dope. Hopefully the folks come and pack out both games, man. That should be pretty dope. Then they play Valley at home, and then, the always interesting Florida Classic down there in Orlando, right? They're going to be looking to get their lick back in the Florida Classic this year because Bethune-Cookman got them last year, right? Still talking about A&M. Said Makai Higgins keeps his grades up. I like. Yeah. Said, why isn't the Magic City Classic game not on HBCU Go? Interesting, man. It's been on ESPN Plus or something for a while. So I don't know. It just depends on the pecking order and the bidding order of the games. All right. So that's just what it is. We'll see, man. All right. So that's FAMU. He said, can FAMU beat Valley? Hey, we'll see, man. All right, so let's keep going. Now we go Prairie View. And Prairie View, they've got an interesting start. They're going to spend its first 5 games in the state of Texas. That's pretty cool, starting the first 5 games in the state of Texas. I love this schedule. I do. I love this. I love their non-conference schedule. I like how it's challenging. Tarleton State, how good those boys were last year, right? That should be a really good opening test to see how they are. Then you get Texas Southern at home on the Sunday of Labor Day weekend. Always interesting. Then they go to play at Baylor. Okay. Then you have the Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks, right? I like that test. So you've got 2 FCS tests, non-conference tests in the first 4. And then you've got at Baylor in there, and then you get your chance to go down there to Dallas. You play that State Fair Classic again against Grambling, which will be pretty cool. And then you got at Valley, and then you get Southern at home. That should be interesting. And then Alcorn State is your homecoming this year. Okay, and then you play East Texas A&M before finishing with your final 3 with Alabama A&M at UAPB. And then what could be interesting in the standings down the stretch there, the final game of their regular season is at Alabama State. So I really, really love this schedule, man. Love it. Love it. You got a payment game, and then you got some challenging non-conference games. And when you say playing, hold on right here. When you say playing East Texas is not a challenge, listen, on paper, you could say that, but you don't know, man. This is the transfer portal era, bro. Teams be building teams, man, and stuff that you never saw can come into play. But we'll see. All right. So we keep going. That's Prairie View schedule. All right. And he said, Preview homecoming should be interesting. Hopefully they have some type of crowd support. They will. I believe they will this year. And it said PV's out of non-conference schedules among the best in the SWAC. Yeah. Like I said, it gets the chef's kiss for me. I like it a lot. All right. So that's Prairie View. Now we go over to Jackson State. Okay. Love this opener, man. I've said it before. I love the opener. Love it, love it, love it at Tennessee State. I think that's going to be great, man. I think it's going to be great. Going to be a big crowd. Jackson State going to bring some folks there to Nashville, right? I expect them to party well early, during, and after, right? And then, people have said everything that they had to say about Edward Waters and Tuskegee. Listen, no one will even think about it if you win the East and you go on and you go to Celebration Bowl. Nobody will even bat an eye at this schedule, right? Southern coming to you, that's going to be a cool one. And then, we get the Mobile game, and then at Grambling should be interesting. That's a get-back game because Grambling's had their number the last 2 times out. Then you get FAMU for homecoming, at Bethune-Cookman, Valley at home, and then you see the 2-game stretch to end the season. 2 road games at Alabama State and at Alcorn State. Crapshoot, man. But, they've got some challenges in this schedule. So that's why I said I'm not here to beat you up about the Edward Waters and the Tuskegee, because I'm looking at the challenges you got. Tennessee State, if you think Tennessee State is the same team that played last year, we'll see. We'll see. But Reggie Barlow, man, I don't know. It's kind of interesting to see what kind of team you'll have. And you're playing them game 1 as you're trying to figure some things out, right? So yeah, we'll see what it is. But yeah, love that finishing stretch, man, at Alabama State, at Alcorn. All right. So we'll keep going. He said, I think Grambling will three-peat. He said, no Lincoln. Well, here, thankfully, you will not. This is the only time you hear me say the Lincoln, California team this year, because Lincoln is not playing football at all in 2026. Not at all. So you won't have to hear that name. And I already said Virginia Lynchburg plenty with the non-conference playing MEAC and also playing Hampton, because Hampton opens with Virginia Lynchburg. He said, well, at least Jackson ain't got no non-conference. Like I said, I'm not here to beat these guys up on their schedule, man. I just know that they've got some opportunities and there's some interesting games that are on this schedule. All right. So that's Jackson State. That's what they have to navigate in 2026. Now you go over here. We turn the page to the Southern Jaguars. All right. So, people will ask 100 times over because they won't pay attention. Is it a conference game? No, it is not a conference game. You don't see that SWAC logo right next to that game. It is not a conference game. Okay. They're getting together. It is a game that does not count in the SWAC standings, but it is an important game nevertheless, because it's the opening game of the Marshall Faulk era. And yeah, people have said different things about Marshall Faulk, and I'm not here to say anything about Marshall Faulk tonight because, everything that could have been said about Marshall Faulk has been said by somebody else. My feelings and where I am about things is I'm just reporting on what really matters. And what really matters is that you've got a program that you're going to build, Marshall Falk, and this is your schedule that you're going to work with. So you've got Alabama State there in Birmingham on week 0, and then you have Kentucky State coming to town, and then the first of their 3 Texas trips at Houston, and then they're playing Louisiana Christian. And yeah, I know people weren't a fan of Louisiana Christian, and they're not a fan of Kentucky State, and but hey, again, like I said before, they've got plenty of challenges on this schedule. Alabama State week 1 is one of them. Then you go to the Vet in your SWAC opener to play Jackson State. Then your homecoming is a little bit early this year. You're going to play UAPB for your homecoming. And then you go, interesting, man, back-to-back weeks to Texas. You go to Prairie View and then to Texas Southern. That is brutal. Brutal. And yeah, he said, will Southern overlook UAPB even though it's homecoming? Listen, man, UAPB ain't a team to overlook nowhere at no time. Y'all know this. You seen UAPB last year. UAPB, when you did not expect them to play well, those jokers came up and played good games. Okay. So yeah, they ain't gonna overlook them. But yeah, they got to go back-to-back trips to Texas. And then they get a bye week, and then they take the next trip to FAMU. So that 3-week stretch right there, man. At Prairie View, at Texas Southern, then you go bye week, but then you go at FAMU, man. That's tough, man. You look at 4 of their first 5 games in the SWAC are road games. I'll say that again. 4 of the first 5 SWAC games, road. That's a tough road, man. Tough road. Doesn't matter. We don't mean, of course, we'll get to what the teams are. We'll get to what the rosters are. We'll get to all that much, much later down the road. As we get into SWAC Media Day, and then, we'll dissect all the records. We'll dissect everything. But right now on paper, man, that's tough. Then you got Bethune-Cookman at home, and then you got Alcorn at home, and then the usual finale, which is November 28th. They're against Grambling there in the Bayou Classic. And yeah, that's a tough stretch. They had a really good home schedule last year. Yeah, didn't matter though. But yeah, you look at this schedule here. Listen, man, these boys win with this schedule. You earned it. Hey, salute. But man, being a first-year coach having that schedule, boy, woo-ee. All right, let's move on. Now we go to Alabama State. You've got, as we said before, Southern in Birmingham. Then they play Lane in their home opener, their official home opener there in Montgomery. Then they go play at Troy, the Troy Trojans. It's not too far of a trip for them. Should be interesting. Test themselves. Then they get a bye week early. And then they go and they play Mississippi Valley to start the opening slate of the SWAC. They go at Bethune-Cookman, and they have homecoming against FAMU. At UAPB, the typical bye week before the Classic, and then they play Alabama A&M in the Magic City Classic there in Birmingham. And then they go to Texas to play at Texas Southern, and then you see that finish that they have. You get Jackson State at home and Prairie View at home. And then you've got Tuskegee in the Turkey Day Classic. Now, this schedule right here, this got some tricks and twists and turns to it as well. Again, starting with Southern. That'll be a good opening test with a non-league, game that doesn't count in the SWAC standings. But then, you get FAMU at home. Then, watch out for UAPB because, like I said before, they can be an interesting team. They just have a way of sneaking up on folks. Then, the game against Alabama A&M. Alabama A&M looking to snap a 4-game losing streak in the series. Right. So you'll see how that goes. Then at Texas Southern is, as y'all know how it is, man, it's not getting easier to go to Texas to play anybody. And then, then you play those 2 home games there to finish your SWAC schedule. So this is interesting, man. Interesting. He says, I hate the Lane game. I didn't like the Miles game either. Yeah, yeah. Well, man, you know, it is what it is, brother. But like I said, you've got plenty of opportunities on this schedule against other teams, man, that will test you. So see how it goes. All right. So that's Alabama State. Now we go to Grambling. All right. Grambling, they get their campaign started on week 0. They're going to play Clark Atlanta. New head coach Terry, Mr. Sims, bringing his Clark Atlanta Panthers down to the hole. Should be interesting. Then you got Central State. Now, a lot of people said they didn't like this schedule either. Yeah, well, two SIAC teams at home to start things off. Yeah, again, I'm not here to beat them up. Then they have a payment game at TCU. Then they get a bye week, and then they go play State Fair Classic. And then after that State Fair Classic, you see their slate, man. You see what they have, 4 straight weeks. You got Prairie View, and you got Alcorn and Jackson State at home. And then you got at Alabama A&M, and then at Texas Southern. It's a tough schedule, man. Tough slate. I know a lot can be said about the first 2 games, but the next 10, yeah. So, UAPB at home. They go to Daytona to play Bethune-Cookman, and then, they always end it with Southern down there in New Orleans. So it said, Grambling padding that early schedule with D2, but they needed that break early. Look here, man. That schedule sets up for them, man. Yeah, get that break. You get the break. You get the break, and then you go State Fair Classic, Alcorn Jackson State at Alabama A&M. That's a stretch. Okay, Grambling. Grambling didn't want to see Kentucky State no more. Yeah. Yeah, we know, man. That was oof. Yeah, they didn't want to see them boys no more. But yeah, that's their schedule, man. Grambling. One thing that they don't have this year either, they don't have Ohio State. But yeah, interesting nevertheless. Shout out to Coach Joseph, man. Contract extension coming on back on the sidelines. All right, let's keep going. Now we go Alcorn. All right, Alcorn. They don't play week 0, but they get their thing started Labor Day weekend. Okay. And he said, Grambling need them first 2. Then TCU. Wow. Yeah. All right, so they get their Alcorn State gets their schedules going at Labor Day weekend. They go at Southern Miss. So out the box, they're gonna go down there and they're gonna play the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. And when I do have Coach Thomas on with me next week, he'll have some comments about the schedule. Again, if you're just joining me a little bit late, Coach Thomas wasn't able to join me tonight. They had a little bit of family emergency, but he will be on with me next week. All right, so we're going over all the schedules. So you've got at Southern Miss, and then you got Southern Heritage Classic early. All right, so they play UAPB early, and that is a get-back game because remember, UAPB stunned them last year. They're in Memphis. All right, and then it is the opener of North Alabama's brand new stadium, Bank Independence Stadium there in Florence, Alabama. So Alcorn State gets a chance to be stadium crashers. Okay. They get to wreck the rule book, possibly. The record book, possibly. Then one of their best games that they played last year, they went down to Texas Southern and picked them off. So this year is the return match there on the reservation. And that is their home opener on the reservation over September 26th. Then you go at Grambling, which is always an interesting game, especially when they go play down there in the hole. And then Arkansas Baptist for homecoming. Yeah, we know. But hey, get your dub, man. Get your dub. And make sure everybody hit that like button. Then you go at Prairie View, and then you have a bye week. And then you go Magnolia Bowl at Valley, and then you get FAMU at Southern and Jackson State. That is a interesting 3-game finishing schedule FAMU at Southern, Jackson State. So depending on how things go, man, they could be playing a major factor in that SWAC race. Either way it goes with those final 3 games. And also that at Prairie View and at Grambling. So you look at the games they play in the West. So they have 3 road games in the West this year. At Grambling, at Prairie View, at Southern. Okay. And their crossover games are FAMU at Valley, and so FAMU at Valley. Those are their crossover games. That should be interesting. And then Jackson State, obviously. That's their crossovers. All right, so that's Alcorn State's schedule. 11-game slate for them this year. Okay, now we go to Bethune-Cookman. Bethune-Cookman, they start things at UCF. Okay. Interesting. Get a payment game right off the top. So they go to Orlando. They're going to actually go to Orlando twice this year. Okay. So you got at UCF and then in-state game against Stetson. So Pioneer Football League, Stetson comes to Daytona for their home opener. And then you got Virginia Lynchburg. Now that's interesting there that they're playing Virginia. Not that they're playing Virginia Lynchburg, but the fact that they have their homecoming September 19th. I know that there were some Bethune-Cookman alums and some fans that were like, what in the world is that? But hey, that's what you got. And then the next week you got South Carolina State coming to town. So you got 3 early home games in a row down there in Daytona. Right. And then you start SWAC play with another home game against Alabama State. So, 4 of their first 5 is at home, and then they hit the road at Alabama A&M, at Valley, and then they get Jackson State at home, and then they have at UAPB, at Southern, Grambling, and then the Florida Classic. And then he said, what? Homecoming 9/19? Yeah, you saw it right. Yeah. 9/19. I would have thought that, Jackson State might have been homecoming. It was the last time, was one of their last times. When Jackson State came last time, it was homecoming. But yeah, no. Virginia Lynchburg, 9/19 is homecoming. Hey, celebrate early, I guess. He said they didn't want JSU for homecoming. Yeah, they didn't want JSU. They didn't want South Carolina State. They didn't want Alabama State. They had their choices. But hey, it is what it is, man. But you know what? Shout out to Bethune-Cookman, man. They went 6-6 last year, and it was a breakthrough. They had a really good season for those guys. But this is the schedule that they're going to have in 2026. Okay, next we go Valley. Shout out to Valley, and this schedule is still evolving. So he said somebody wanted a guaranteed win on homecoming. Yeah, they definitely getting a win, man. So all right, so they're gonna start August 27th, very early on week 0 at Nichols. Okay. Going down there to Thibodeau. And then this is a game that for right now is still on at Sacramento State. And then the Chicago Classic, they're playing there in Chicago, but they don't have an opponent named yet. Okay. So they're going to play in Soldier Field against somebody to be named later. We'll see. Last time they played there in the Chicago Classic, they played Central State. So we'll see. Then they host Delta State. And Delta State has had their number a little bit here lately. The Statesmen have been real tough on them boys. All right. Then they go SWAC play. They play at Alabama State. Then they host Prairie View at Texas Southern. Their homecoming is against Bethune-Cookman. And then they have Alcorn at Jackson State, at Florida A&M, and then they finish with Alabama A&M. All right. So this is the schedule that Coach T-Buck and his crew will have to start his next campaign, his second campaign there in Itabena. All right. Then this is still being filled out, but these are the games. He said over under 1 win for Valley. Hey, man, We'll see, man. We'll see. We'll see. He said, I mean, to fam, you would give it. Hey, man, we'll see. We'll see. But look here, man. We go on to Texas Southern. These are the games that they have announced. Um, you know, they're gonna get things started with North Carolina Central at home. I love that matchup. Love it, love it, love it, man. Love it. I think it's gonna be a really good game down there in down there in Houston. He said Kendrick Wade, when he took Valley to Soldier Field in Chicago, said he wasn't coming back, didn't like the housing and food accommodations. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Then they go at Prairie View on a Sunday in the Labor Day Classic. Then they go play at UTEP. And then they open SWAC play with they have their second game of SWAC play with Alcorn State. And then at Florida Atlantic on October 3rd. So you have a gap, you have a couple gaps here to see what they're going to get filled, right? So what you're looking at 11 games on their schedule right now. There is room for them to add one more if they are going to add one more. If they do, it'll be either 9-19 or 10-24. But right now, these are the games that they have. 10-10 is Valley. 10-17 is Southern, and then Grambling. So you see they've got some home games there. And then Alabama State at home. And then they got at Alabama A&M, and they finish at UAPB. So one game that you don't see on here that you might get is their typical, they like to play homecoming there at Durley Stadium on campus. So you might see it 10-24, or you might see it 9-19, right? So they have not fully announced the schedule, but these are the games that have been confirmed to it, right? So yeah, you're right, man. 2 money games. Yeah. They go at UTEP and they go at Florida Atlantic. Yeah. And the other game they got there, they got North Carolina Central at home. So interesting, man. Interesting. And then last but not least, this has not been fully announced yet either, but these are the confirmed games that UAPB has. They've still got gaps here. So you see they've got at Missouri, and then they have the Southern Heritage, which is their SWAC opener there in Memphis. And then they play at Southern, which is Southern's homecoming. They have announced their own homecoming, which is going to be 10-17 against Alabama State. And then you see the rest of the SWAC games at FAMU, Bethune-Cookman at home, at Grambling, Prairie View at home, and then Texas Southern, right? So, yeah, that is what UAPB has, all right? So those are all the SWAC teams, and then we'll go through the MEAC real quick. You got North Carolina Central. Their schedule is complete, so they're going to play at Texas Southern, Elizabeth City State at home, and then Aggie Eagle Classic at home against North Carolina A&T. And then they go road at Gardner Webb, FCS non-conference game. Then they got a payment game at East Carolina. Then they play Campbell at home, William and Mary at home. And then you see their MEAC slate, their final 5 at Delaware State, Howard, at Norfolk State, at South Carolina State, Morgan State. So one thing that the MEAC did this year, they kept the same schedule, the same teams and the same slates as they were last year. They just flipped them. Okay. So at Delaware State, Howard, at Norfolk, at South Carolina State, and then Morgan State. That's North Carolina Central. Then South Carolina State, you see they're going to play Savannah State to open things up. Then they go down there and they play the Orange Blossom Classic. And then they have Virginia State at home. So they play 2 D2s in their first 3. Then they go to Furman, Bethune-Cookman. And then they have the Citadel non-conference. And then also non-conference at Charleston Southern. And then you see their slate. Their homecoming game is Norfolk State. And then at Morgan State, at Howard, North Carolina Central, Delaware State for South Carolina State. Okay. So, yeah. Interesting schedule for them. Defending HBCU national champions and Celebration Bowl winners. Chennis Berry's 3rd season there. That's their schedule. Then you go Morgan State. They're going to start things week 0 at North Carolina A&T. Then they go down and they play Arizona State, man. Whoo, boy. Going to be hot down there late at night down there in the desert. Then they have Virginia Lynchburg at home. at Towson across town. You know, that's a rivalry. At Villanova, going up to Philly. And then Robert Morris. Robert Morris is, homecoming. He said, SCSU, weakest schedule we had in D2 decades with 2 D2. And they say, I miss these comments. Wow, NCCU has a serious schedule. Yeah, they do. Morgan State here at Robert Morris for homecoming. And then at Tennessee State, and then their MEAC schedule is Howard, South Carolina State at home. At Delaware State, Norfolk State at home, and finish at North Carolina Central. Okay, so Coach Wilson, that's his schedule. All right. Now you go Norfolk State. Coach Vic. I actually watched some of his show on BET last night, the Coach Vic Experience. Oh boy, a lot of things to work on for that team, man, as they head into year 2 of his regime. They start things with Winston-Salem State, okay? And then they go to Old Dominion and Virginia in consecutive weeks, man. That is, yeah. That's all I'm going to say there, man. Yeah. And then you have the Battle of the Bay against Hampton. You know, that's always heated when those two teams get together. And then they were supposed to have originally played at North Carolina A&T on October 17th for North Carolina A&T's homecoming. But they swapped, and so they're going to go to Chicago and play at Chicago State. And then they're going to have at Robert Morris, and then they play Virginia Lynchburg. There's that team again. And then they have at South Carolina State. And then right now, the Delaware State game is listed that it's going to be at home in Norfolk, but we'll see. Remember, last year they played in Philadelphia. And then you've got Norfolk State playing North Carolina Central at home at Morgan State versus Howard. All right. Then you got Delaware State. They have one date that is yet to be determined yet. All right. That is October 10th. Presumably it could be against Central Connecticut State. It's still to be determined. But what you do have are these games. They start on Thursday the 27th with Stony Brook. Then they go to William and Mary. They have Bowie State at home. And then they go at South Florida. And then you've got Towson at home, at Albany, and then they start their MEAC slate. They start with North Carolina Central at home. And then they go at Norfolk State. Again, like I said before, it depends where it's going to be played. Right now, it is in Norfolk, but we'll see. Then they have Morgan State at Howard, and they finish at South Carolina State. All right, so that is Deshaun Jackson's second year schedule as of now. And then Howard, they haven't completed theirs as of yet, but these are the confirmed games that they do have. They start things off in Atlanta with Alabama A&M. Then they host Richmond, so they get to play in Green Stadium early this year. And, yeah, man, it's going to be tough. And then they go at Indiana, man, oh, my goodness. You know, at Indiana, you know what that team was last year, Kurt Signetti and them boys. And then at Rutgers. So 2 Big Ten games back-to-back, payment games. And then they have the Battle of the Real HU Truth and Service Classic against Hampton. And then you see their MEAC slate at Morgan State, at North Carolina Central, South Carolina State at home, Delaware State at home, and then they finish at Norfolk State. Okay? That is MEAC. And then we got 3 more here for you tonight. He said Indiana is crazy. Yeah. Indiana, yeah, I'll go back. Indiana is crazy, and then playing at Rutgers the very next week. That's even more crazy. He said, Howard got a grown man schedule. Yeah, they do. Grown man schedule with a first-year head coach, man. That's tough. Yeah. All right. North Carolina A&T, second year of the Sean Gibbs regime. They host Morgan State to start. And then they go to Georgia State. And then they have North Carolina Central on the road in the Aggie Eagle Classic. And then you see CAA play at Campbell, defending champion Rhode Island, Then they go to the state of Rhode Island to play Bryant. Then they go to New Hampshire to play New Hampshire. So look at that. They go up to Rhode Island and then go to New Hampshire in back-to-back weeks. And then the greatest homecoming on earth game is Chicago State at home. Again, that was a swap with Norfolk State, right? So Chicago State's coming to Greensboro for greatest homecoming on earth this year. Then they got Elon at home, and then they go at Monmouth, at Hampton, and then Albany to finish their schedule there in the CAA. And then you've got Hampton. This is Hampton. They've got Virginia Lynchburg to open, and then they go to Maryland. And he said, looks like another 2 to 3 win season. In North Carolina A&T over under 4 games. Okay, yeah, I see what y'all saying. Virginia Lynchburg at home to get the Van Malone era started, and then you go at Maryland, payment game there, and then they have Bryant at home, at Norfolk State in the Battle of the Bay, and then they go Campbell at home in CAA, and then the Battle of the Real HU at Sacred Heart. Sacred Heart joined the CAA this year. Then their homecoming game against Monmouth for the second year in a row, actually. Homecoming against Monmouth at home. And then at Towson, at Elon, and then they play North Carolina A&T at home. Should be a good crowd for North Carolina A&T. And then at Stony Brook to finish things. And then last but not least, we finish it with Tennessee State. Tennessee State, this is their schedule with Coach Reggie Barlow here in year 2. He's got Jackson State at home, and then at Georgia, at Alabama A&M, at Florida A&M, at Western Illinois, Big South OVC, Tennessee Martin, and then Morgan State is their homecoming, and then Charleston Southern, at Lindenwood, SEMO, Eastern Illinois, and at Gardner Webb. This is a pretty interesting schedule for Tennessee State, man. They kind of loaded it up. You look at it. Look at everything they got non-conference. There ain't no slouches on this schedule at all. Jackson State, money game at Georgia, but then you look at the rest of the other non-conference. At Alabama A&M, at Florida A&M, and you got Morgan State. Pretty good, man. Pretty good. So for all the talks about D2s and NAIAs and Virginia Lynchburgs and all that stuff, got this schedule. This is a good one, right? He said, just move Tennessee State to the SWAC. Tennessee State over under 5 wins. Yeah, well, that's what we got, man. So, yeah. So, man, I appreciate everybody for rocking with me tonight. Again, this was not the originally planned show, but hey, like I said, I'm gonna have Coach Thomas on next week. He had a family emergency, but I had this prepared in reserve just in case. And this is not the last time I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna probably do this show again with my boy JB, Sports Talking with JB. I'll probably do this with him. And, we'll have additional commentary and additional views and all that kind of stuff with this. But before I get out of here tonight, I do want to say a couple things. I want to talk about certain things. First off, SWAC basketball is coming down the stretch. Make sure you support that. Looking forward to seeing my alma mater, Alabama A&M, going to lock horns with Alabama State on Saturday. A sold-out crowd. It's going to be pretty big. Alabama A&M women lead the SWAC, with 2 games to play. With 2-game lead with 3 games to play, looking to get their first ever regular season championship. So it should be pretty good. Men's standings should be pretty dope. Should be a pretty good tournament. So make sure you support that. MEAC, make sure you support all that. Also, there's going to be some spring games that are going to come up, man. That should be pretty dope. Make sure you support all that. Yeah, he said, thank you for allowing different perspectives on your pod. Thanks for your patience. Yeah, man. Anytime, man. Anytime. So last but not least that I will say here tonight, I want to talk about something that has been making the rounds, which is about stadiums. Um, Listen, I know people love to joke and they love to joke, like to do things. Um, so Jackson State, it was said today. I read actually before I came on, I actually read that the vote, for them to try to get some funding to build a new stadium, it didn't go through today. One thing that I really wish is that they had more support. And I get, the state of where we are in America right now, race relations and, money, where money gets supported and funneled to and all those different things. We know about all that stuff. I just wish that things could be better in that situation. The vet, it opened in 1950. So over 75-year-old building. And for those that don't know or think about the way these things, the finances and how much this stuff costs. So I've seen different things where people have said, well, they could renovate it. Well, sometimes, doing a renovation can cost as much as building a brand new stadium, depending on what kind of renovation you're trying to get. I've seen people say, well, they talked about, what the capacity should be, all those different types of things. For me, man, I just really hope that the situation can come to fruition at some point, because for the good folks down there that support that team day in and day out, you guys deserve a wonderful building to play in that is modern and takes you well into the future, you know. And yeah, you're right, Mr. Major. You're right. You said the Mississippi you talking about, you know what it is. Absolutely. But like I said, I just wish that things would be different. And I still have belief that things will be different up the road. Because, at some point, you look around and you see a lot of projects that end up happening. Some of it happens with private donors. Some of it happens with people who come around and they just have generous gift in their hearts. But we'll see. The other thing I want to say before I end tonight too is, uh, no matter where you are right now, um, no matter where you are right now, no matter who you're rooting for, no matter who you're supporting, make sure you continue to support your HBCUs. Make sure you continue to give and give and give, because some of the aforementioned things, and I'm looking more here, it says stadiums and arenas in our HBCUs are big issues. Yeah. Tennessee State has to play their games. Yeah, because the state is not thinking about renovating Hale Stadium. And then Bethune Cookman needs a new basketball arena. Yeah, you got a lot of these different initiatives, man. And also, outside of athletics, you got other things and other needs that some of our HBCUs have. There's educational buildings that are needed, whether it's renovations or brand new buildings built. You need like student centers or, update your residence halls and things like that. So a lot of these things, you got to make sure that you're continuing to support. And with the support, it's also too that I will say is continue to continue with these celebrities and these people who continue to make these appearances on our campuses. Some of these people have even bigger cachet and bigger resources to people who have even larger resources. So it is important that we continue to pump up the positivity as much as we can do. I get it. Trash talking is at the core of a lot of what we do, and the trash talking is at the core of a lot of places. PWIs do it as well. Yeah, but while you're doing it, make sure that you don't lose track of what is the biggest picture of them all, which is we're all fighting a lot of the same battles, and we're all trying to slay all of these demons out here that are trying to, either keep us constrained, keep us held back. But the other thing that you also can do as people is continuing to educate ourselves and reading and everything, all these different things that are out here. You've got resources to see all this stuff. And yeah, you said my issue is the PWI getting funding for their projects. West Florida, North Alabama. Yeah. But the other thing that I said with this though, too, Mr. Major, is the fact that you've got some private monies that have come through for some of these projects, right? You got people who have monies, millions of dollars that are very generous, whether they're alums or whether they're business people. And it's also interesting. I'm glad that I just thought about this too. I got to say this as well. Naming rights. Yes, naming rights. I got to say this too, man, because this is something that I talk about at great length with some of my other my From the Hill podcast crew buddies. We talk about this a lot. Talk about naming rights for our event center where we play basketball at. Some of us out here, we can possibly look at some naming rights, because that is what is very prevalent out here in America or all over the world, is naming rights for stadiums. Now, I know some people say, well, we got our legends, we like to name these things after our legends, all these different things. I get that. But there is an option where you can name the field or name the court, or you can keep the name of the stadium, like A.W. Mumford Stadium, American Airlines Stadium at A.W. Mumford, whatever, or American Airlines Field at A.W. Mumford Stadium, or Redstone Federal at Lewis Cruz Stadium, if you're talking about Alabama A&M. Just any of these different things that we can talk about with naming rights and corporate sponsorships, right? One thing that has been a coup is how the Magic City Classic has Amazon as a sponsor, right? Also, you got Florida Blue, Florida Classic, right? You've got all these different sponsors, but I'm talking about sponsorships and things of that nature on our campuses. And I know a lot of times we think about the people that we name the building after, and there's a way that you can still name them, but you can still make additional revenue, man. Make additional revenue. And I like this. He said, we just got to be super smart with fundraising, corporate sponsorships, etc. And all I'm saying is that we've got some wonderful people at our institutions in these departments. We got some really great athletic directors with forward vision, man. We got a lot of it. Got a lot of it. He said, scaring a lot of potential donors off now. Yeah, still. You still have to talk about it. You still have to bring it up. And you still have to be able to have forward vision, because it is possible. There's many, many ways that we can go about how we can make the culture and the climate of our situations better. So that's all I'm going to say tonight. I appreciate everybody for rolling with me tonight. Next week, we will be back. We're going to get the date together with Coach Thomas, and we'll come back and we'll do it. And make sure everybody hits the like button. And also, you can share this show with people. Show them, hey, we went over all these schedules tonight and we had some really good dialogue. I hope everybody is well out there, and continue to do your thing, live life, be happy. And HBCUs today, tomorrow, and forevermore. Wild Wayne Cartwright, love you all. Good night.
Thank you for joining us on the ride with Wild Wayne Cartwright. As you exit the ride, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, hit the like button, and catch up on all of our prior episodes. Until next time, God bless.